The lookouts saw nothing. The radar spotted nothing. And the skipper aboard the USS Parche submarine was desperate and restless to find the elusive Japanese convoy in the South China Sea. The commanding officer hopped back and forth between the radar screen in the conning tower and plot tables in the control room until they finally found it. Commander Lawson read Ramage, then cleared the bridge and steamed directly into the enemy formation up on the surface while maneuvering between the ships. In the words of author Clay Drewry Blair Jr., quote, "With consummate seamanship and coolness under fire, Ramage dodged and twisted." The commander then opened fire, and the enemy answered with deck guns and even tried to ram the sneaky submarine. But Ramage was determined to cause as much damage as possible, and the torpedo shooting that night was unlike anything the Japanese had experienced before. The Headhunters. The submarine's Wolfpack, known as Parche's Pirates, departed the island of Midway in mid-June of 1944. Led by Commander Louis Parkes, the pack was tasked with patrolling the area between Formosa and Lawson in a chase for Japanese merchant ships. The group was composed of USS Steelhead, USS Hammerhead, and USS Parche, and Parche's commander suggested that they should be called the Headhunters, given that they had Steelhead, Hammerhead, and himself, Lawson Ramage, a redhead. The veteran of the group was Steelhead, sailing on her 6th patrol. For Parche, it was her 2nd mission, while Hammerhead was on her very 1st patrol. They were to conduct offensive missions in the South China Sea and destroy any enemy forces they encountered. For centuries, the Luzon Strait, a 230-mile stretch bridging Taiwan and the Philippines, had been a strategic gateway in the region. In the last stages of the Pacific War in mid-1944, Japanese mariners even dubbed the strait the Devil's Sea, as the area was full of lurking American submarines determined to sink their Marus, or merchant ships. The 3 vessels arrived on July 1st and devoted their time to roaming the area, submerged by day and surfaced by night. But for the best part of a month, the Headhunters saw little action. Still, according to Red Ramage, the stretch was the most lucrative patrol area in the entire Pacific, or at least it was supposed to be. Miscommunications. On July 4th, Parche spotted 3 warships heading southwest. But as the submarine prepared to attack, the Japanese struck first. Ramage was then forced to flee because of the enemy's surprisingly accurate salvos. 2 weeks later, Parche's lookouts found a lone aircraft carrier. Ramage thought it was a, quote, perfect dream come true, but when the carrier launched patrol aircraft, the commander's dream was again frustrated. The following week, there was a report that the Japanese submarine I-29 would sail through the area. Moreover, it was believed that she was carrying strategic materials and blueprints from Germany, thus becoming the Wolfpack's top priority. The American ships formed a picket line to intercept the precious vessel, but it wasn't Parche nor Ramage who claimed the victory. Then, on July 30th, while Ramage and his crew wondered if their disappointment would ever end, promising news finally came through. At 4:20 a.m., Hammerhead reported sighting a convoy only 20 miles south of Parche's position. 18 minutes later, Hammerhead reconfirmed the position and added that she was now engaging the enemy on the port flank. However, as the hours passed, Ramage and even Parkes began to suspect that Hammerhead's information was wrong. They should have encountered the convoy 3 hours ago. Then Parkes asked the skipper, Lieutenant Commander John Martin, to verify the location. The enemy was now 30 miles north of Parche. Mildly irritated, Ramage turned around and headed there. Before long, the commanders realized that they were moving fast, but going nowhere. Yet again, Parkes asked for verification, and Martin reported a revised position at 30 miles to the northwest. By now, Ramage was extremely exasperated, and even wondered if there was an enemy convoy at all. In the middle of the action. After finishing her unsuccessful attack, Hammerhead departed for Fremantle, Australia. It was later determined that she had miscoded the convoy's positions. In reality, there was indeed a sizable Japanese convoy composed of 18 ships carrying 10,000 troops and thousands of tons of supplies, with 7 warships escorting it. Still, Parche was unaware. Discouraged, Ramage took the boat deep below the water at 6:21 a.m. to avoid enemy anti-submarine patrols. After her futile chase, Parche remained submerged for the entire day, although the crew kept on the lookout through the periscope. At 10:30 in the morning, Steelhead sighted convoy Mi-11 and quickly went after it. However, Ramage would not learn the news until several hours later because of being under radio silence. It was only when Parche resurfaced towards the end of the day that her crew picked up a position report from her teammate. The convoy was now crossing the strait 35 miles southwest of Parche, which set off at full speed. It took the crew a few hours to find the enemy, for they had made a radical course change. But the convoy finally popped on the radar, and Ramage called for battle stations. Parche crept in from behind the enemy, but the skipper reckoned it would be best to get ahead of the group. Under cover of darkness, the submarine steamed along the convoy on the surface and towards the 3 lead escorts, when suddenly one of them turned in their direction. Ramage had to pull a reverse spinner to turn the ship's nose around. In an unexpected move, the entire 25-ship convoy also turned 90 degrees, and the Americans came into a direct collision course. The crew had to pull off another sharp turn to get out of their way, before repositioning for a proper attack. Then, at 3:56 a.m., Parche fired 2 bow torpedoes, officially kicking off the battle. Out of the box. Within 10 minutes, Ramage detected what he thought was a pair of aircraft carriers, but in reality were large tankers. Resolved, he launched 4 torpedoes toward one of the tankers. The first ripped off the bow, while the other 3 pierced through the middle, and the Koei Maru did not take long to sink. Then Parche pointed her stern at the other ship, Ogura Maru, and fired 3 more charges. An officer later recalled that the skipper, quote, was in his element, just calmly picking targets. Meanwhile, the Japanese were confused, firing flares and shooting indiscriminately. On the other side of the convoy, Steelhead had launched 2 attacks, with at least 1 hit. But while she had to submerge to reload, Ramage had no desire to lose his advantage on the already alerted enemy. Thus, he decided to reload his empty tubes while maneuvering on the surface. It was unprecedented and risky, as the rocking waves could cause a terrible accident while handling the mines. But Ramage had drilled the crew in the technique. Within minutes, Parche had 2 tubes ready, and at 4:16 a.m., she fired at Dakar Maru, and the 7,000-ton transport slowed to a crawl. Parche then re-engaged the damaged Ogura Maru. With shells whistling overhead, Ramage sent all spare hands below, while his torpedo men prepared 3 more charges. Already down by the bow, the tanker could not defend herself from the relentless Americans, and by 4:21 a.m., 3 more torpedoes finished her and dragged her down. As Ramage looked for another target, the gunboat Kazan Maru appeared out of nowhere, racing straight towards his submarine, with clear intentions to ram. A close call. Inexplicably, Parche was at a standstill in the middle of the battle when her commander ordered, quote, all ahead flank. If it hadn't been for helmsman Chet Stanton, who gave the order to turn full right at the last moment, Parche would have been cut in half. Ramage gave the instruction a fraction of a second too late. Now clear of danger, Parche spotted her next victim, a 9,000-ton transport. The only problem was that the vessel was straight ahead, leaving a slim chance to shoot it directly at the bow. 2 of 3 torpedoes hit Yoshino Maru, and then Parche launched another from her stern. Then, as the skipper recalled, the transport, quote, suddenly disappeared from sight in one big blurb. At 4:47 a.m., the gyro aiming mechanism in the forward torpedo room jammed, forcing Parche to withdraw. Plus, dawn was about to break. The remarkable battle lasted just 34 minutes, during which the submarine fired 19 torpedoes, 9 of which had been impressively reloaded while on the surface and during relentless action. Equal share. Parche was credited with 4 ships sunk, while Steelhead sank 2. The episode was eventually dubbed Ramage's Rampage, as it involved more shooting in less time than any other American submarine attack in the entire war. When Parche's pirates returned to Pearl Harbor, Vice Admiral Charles A. Lockwood, commander of the Submarine Force U.S. Pacific Fleet, nominated Ramage for the Medal of Honor. Only 2 submariners had been awarded the United States' highest military honor, both posthumously, making Ramage the first living recipient. Still, Ramage felt the medal was owed to every sailor in his crew, and after the ceremony, he created a certificate for every man under his command, arguing that, quote, every officer and man whose loyal cooperation and able assistance contributed to the success of the USS Parche has an equal share in this award. Thanks for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, please hit the thumbs up button, and check out all our other Dark Documentaries channels for many more epic stories from the World Wars. And don't forget to click on the bell icon to be notified of our newest content. Stay tuned.